So we're going to do speed moderation, speed panel discussion. So I'd like to invite our three panelists. The first person, who happens to be right here, is Lisa Shogul. Lisa Shogul is a sustainable tourism specialist and director of Tiger Mountain Pokhara Lodge, and she's lived in Nepal forever. The second person that I'd like to invite up is Rosabella Ong, who's the principal client partner for Southeast Asia for TripAdvisor. And the third person, I wonder where he is Upal Mujumdar, who's the head of practice for tourism for Dolma Consulting. Very good, excellent. You guys all have a microphone? I'll come sit over here. So I think the way that we're going to do this is we're going to go from the macro, which is TripAdvisor. We're going to sort of look at it from a global perspective, first Southeast Asia perspective. Then we'll hone a little bit more on South Asia. And I'll tap into Lisa's experience in broader South Asia. And then after that, we'll have Upal speak maybe more specifically about Nepal. So I think what I want to do is, Rosabella, I wanted to ask you just a couple of questions. So, should destinations, by the way, our panel discussion is about how we're driving value, higher value tourists to come in. And so I think the question, Rosabella, is, should destinations be prioritizing higher value tourism? And what are the trade-offs and challenges of moving into sort of higher value tourism? So if you could give us some perspective on that. And take your time, because I think I'm not sure how many rounds of questions we'll have, so please really do what you want to do now. I'll give you 3 or 4 minutes to go ahead and do that, please. Thank you.
Okay, since I have three minutes or so, I just want to take the chance to thank you, Tourism Nepal, for this opportunity. I think I'm the first TripAdvisor representative stepping on Nepal. Such an honor and privilege. And also to thank all the businesses and the travel community, to let you know that in February 2022, we have crossed the milestone of 1 billion reviews. And thank you for everyone to be part of the journey. It's been a good 23 years, and let's keep going on hitting those milestones. Yes, so coming back to the question, Peter, definitely, I think through the conversations with multiple travel businesses, with tourism boards, we want to look beyond the traditional way of measuring arrivals, right? We look at border entries, we look at even flights arrivals to specific destination, but what we need to know in the missing gaps and the missing puzzle pieces, it is the granular trends. Especially after the pandemic, travelers' behavior, travel planning has changed, right? Perhaps previously there were more shopping cities, but now they are seeking more adventure, things like that. Longer stays, higher booking value for hotels, even dining. They want to try Michelin star restaurants. So to understand the data using different sources, like what Visa has shared earlier, like what Euromoto has shared earlier in terms of the billions of dollars they're spending on wellness, on adventure. So leaning on all these data sources is going to help us determine the higher value opportunities for tourism. And on TripAdvisor end, obviously we have very strong first-party data signals. And just to cite an example, for North Sumatra, which is Indonesia, we have seen for April 2023 versus April 2022, there has been domestic accommodation page views that went up 46%. And for international accommodation page views have went up over 149%, right? Obviously it is travel recovery, but diving deeper into the data, we are looking into audience clicking on 5-star hotels. So we are able to see meta clickers on TripAdvisor, and that has been an increase as well. So it goes to show that there is actually a desire, there's an appetite for higher spending, for more expensive, more inclusive, immersive kind of experience, in various types of manner. So whatever that is worth doing is worth measuring. So at TripAdvisor as well, we support partners like tourism boards with a destination insights platform. And this destination insights platform allows DMOs,
starting with the old story of the hippies. However, since the insurgency, we really have had a problem with pushing up destinations. We've been very reliant on East Asian and regional markets. We've seen big increases in numbers, but dramatic decreases in spend. So I think the answer to any of these destination value is to have a spread, a balance, a range of segments. And that's perhaps what we're lacking in Nepal at the moment. We've sort of lost that top end. This can, of course, be solved. We've heard a lot about it. Some fantastic information this morning. But it can be solved with proactive product development, destination development, and, of course, marketing to match expectations of people coming here. We have heard this morning from Visa that there are less people paying more, and I'm not saying this is fair, or I mean, this is not a moral judgment, it's a fact from Visa. We've heard it on many destinations this morning, which is really interesting. But we have got some examples. It doesn't mean it's always easy. Bhutan has had quite a rough road with the introduction of the $200 fee. Of course, Bhutan is a kind of special case, which I've had the privilege of working quite often there. But they've achieved less, they've always had a policy of less people paying more, low impact, high value. But they have used the example of COVID to reset by introducing this new fee, which has proven quite challenging to implement, but is actually what every destination really wants: is less people paying more money, as long as it's going to the communities, as long as it's spread and achieving the national objectives. I think the answer is in partnerships. Partnerships between the public and private sector, local communities, and in the case of Nepal, which is very much a key nature adventure, wildlife destination, culture destination, with the resource managers in the protected areas. Most of our mountain tourism is in protected areas. We're very conscious of climate change. Everest 70 is being celebrated at the moment in Nepal, getting a lot of international publicity with a big focus, as our CEO of the Nepal Tourism Board mentioned, very, very important impacts on the country. Is it fair? Hard to say. I took my son last year to Rwanda, which is not in the Parta region, but it is the single, my background's in wildlife tourism, showing people tigers and rhinos. We paid $1,500 each to see the Rwanda gorillas. It's very highly organized, very well managed, actually controlled by the government department. And it really made me wonder, why are we selling our amazing assets in Nepal and indeed in other parts of Asia so cheaply? Thank you.
Does master planning, destination master planning, have anything to do with sort of, looking at value tourism? So at an early stage, or even if a destination wants to do a bit of a reboot, to sort of be looking at specific regions that are more for high value tourism and other ones that are more for backpackers? I almost kind of think of my home of Bali, where they have Nusa Dua, and the idea of Nusa Dua was it was supposed to be the 5-star hotels, and the idea originally was that everybody would stay at the 5-star hotels and then go touring during the day and come back to Nusa Dua in the evening. But this idea of maybe master planning your way to higher value tourism, is that realistic? Or
there's been a lot of studies done in Nepal, a lot of planning. Getting it implemented has always been a challenge.
You should be in Russell Kaima, apparently. Apparently it goes very quickly there.
We should. We all are really impressed. But we should. We've tried this. We have tried making some areas. Mustang, just northwest of here, is a good example of a very special trans-Himalayan region that is branded as a remote region where you pay extra to go. Still not huge amounts of money when you think of what people are paying in other parts of the world. I think better, perhaps, I would mention New Zealand, which, as we saw, has also taken advantage of drawing a line after COVID and rebooting, which is what we would, all of us should be doing, really. It's, in that respect, it's a great opportunity. But Milford Track, concessioning areas. In the old days, Tiger Tops was a concession, and other lodges in Chitwan and Bardia National Parks. We've sort of moved away from that. It's really hard. It's been very hard to make that work with a succession of governments that we've had. But what we have done really well, and what actually is a model in the whole of the Asia region, is packaged our resources to appeal to different levels, and I'm specifically thinking of trekking, which takes place mainly in Annapurna and Everest, some in Langtang. We've been working on the Great Himalaya Trail to push those benefits east and west to reach more remote areas, and that has been supported by many of the bilateral and multilateral development agencies, because they see tourism as a very good way to get benefits out into the remote areas. But we've packaged tourism from everything from the kids that want to carry their own stuff right the way up to the people who are paying $500 a day to have Sherpa teams and smart tents and showers and toilets and whatever. Yeah. So it's the same product but differently packaged. Again, that's kind of blurring now. We've got some really nice lodges, but yeah. I think it's quite hard to in Nepal to sort of segregate it, but there are definitely destinations like you have mentioned where it is absolutely essential, and Europe, of course, has been doing this for decades.
Yeah. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. We have 13 minutes, so we're good. And I am aware of the fact that there might be questions, so please start to raise your hand so that somebody with the microphone can get to you. And in the meantime, I'm not going to just hold your things because we still have one more panelist that needs to speak. But after that, I'm going to take some questions. So you, Paul, it's very nice to see you. And I know that a lot of what you work on is tourism investment, perhaps with a focus on Nepal. Being Nepalese, maybe you can be very critical or very honest about your destination, the good, the bad, and the ugly as well. So thank you, and please.
Thank you, Peter. It's wonderful to meet so many old friends. So incidentally, Peter, I'm not Nepalese. I am from India. But I love Nepal. I came here 11 years back, and this is my third assignment. And I worked earlier with hotels, which I used to head and take care of, the Annapurna, the Solti Crown Plaza. And now, of course, I work with Dolma Consulting, and one of my roles is as head of practice for tourism is to get tourism investments into Nepal. A lot of people look at COVID as something which brought life to a full stop and a circle, and that's correct, it did. But the good thing, I think, what's happening from COVID, and this is what I see happening in Nepal, that now we started getting a lot of investments happening in the high-value tourism area. So we've got a new property, and I'll just share some of the quick ones. So we're having a new property coming up in Jomsom, which is pretty inaccessible. From Pokhara, of course, you can drive down or take a 15-minute flight. But you got to land there before 11 in the morning or take off from there 11 in the morning. But after that, the wind speeds pick up and you can't take off or land from there. But there's a Shintamani resort coming up there, which is, the design of Ben Binsley, and it's going to be priced at $1,500 to maybe $1,700 a night, minimum stay, 5 nights, and that's the gateway to enter Mustang, which Lisa was just mentioning, to Upper Mustang. So that's happening. There are a few other resorts coming in. There are some, and the emergence of how things have changed from 2000 till 2015. There are only 3 branded 5-star hotels in Nepal. All right. As we look at today, Kathmandu itself probably has 8 brand new properties coming up, all in the branded space. All across Nepal, there are probably some 26 branded properties coming up. All right. But the issue is about investments. And like you rightly said, we have access to a lot of funds from abroad focused on the SME and MSME sector. So I can easily get funds for those projects, but that's not going to drive high value tourism. Of course, we do a lot of work with local communities, community homestays, things like that picking up, individual destinations picking up. But where I think, all of us, and this is where I see a lot of people here in this room connected to the tourism business, is to drive investments into Nepal. I've been to Bhutan. Bhutan did great work. So what you were mentioning about putting in a framework together, Bhutan did that brilliantly, and they're getting only high value tourists coming into the country, and then it's all sustainable. The challenge always is, if you want sustainability, it comes at a price. It does not come at a package. The moment you put in package, you have a baseline revenue coming in, but then it kind of just goes away. The other challenge, of course, which Nepal has, we've got some fantastic destinations. You probably saw the mountains early morning from your hotel room or the terrace, and imagine if you are there. And we have got 7 of the highest 9 peaks in the world, because besides a host of other mountains. So the other high value investments which are happening in Nepal are smaller properties. There are some glamping sites coming up. I visited one about 2 weeks back, and I was blown. I've been in Nepal, I've been to Everest Base Camp, did a few hikes around the place, but I was blown at the sheer views which you're getting from there. Small properties. The investor is a local Nepali, but he got a European designer in. He's got a British lady who's going to be marketing the place. And I think our biggest challenge is really not creating a high value destination. It's about marketing the high value destination. And I've been for several Pada travel marts as the general manager of 2 of the hotel chains which I headed. But all the people I met were all asking for a discounted rate. So if you want,
work in the tourism.
Yeah, that's right. So somewhere I feel, post-COVID, there is a demand from customers, and where I see the emergence happening is that there are a lot of FIT travelers who are booking direct, who are asking for much higher value. They are far more discerning, and we look at the Gen buyers, the millennials, and the Gen Zers. They don't even come and talk to you. They're only on their mobiles all the time, and they've already assessed your destination. I've got 2 young daughters, and they've been talking to me about destination Nepal, which I have not heard of, but it's there on the phone. So again, somewhere I think the travel industry itself is changing, and those trends are going to be visible in Nepal, and we are definitely seeing those things happening, but the pace of change is very slow. Yeah. And we need a lot of regulatory things around it so that we are able to build those destinations and maintain them.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Very, very interesting. Okay, we have 7.5 minutes. Saifuddin, you're first, and then put your hands up, please. Go ahead. Yep.
Saif Ismailji, instead of a question, may I make a quick suggestion? E-Travelers Club Travel Update Consultancy. I'm afraid that how come the industry is unable to learn from a destination like Philippines, that I would agree with Peter, that is it fair to control over tourism? You charge exorbitantly to tourists, like $300 to enter Komodo. Instead, what Boracay did is a great example for the industry, that they shut down Boracay for 1 month. Now that will not only bring the nature back, it will also give a breathing space, and that is one way to control over tourism. So I hope that that this model can be taken up by other destinations.
Yeah.
Of course, the whole country doesn't need to shut down, but diversification of shutting down one.
Does somebody want to comment on that? Lisa, you sort of were there? Or you can hand it over to Rosabella.
I could take
okay,
on
I'll go.
that.
Yeah.
Okay. See, I don't think it's possible to shut down a destination, all right? Because there are people whose livelihoods are linked to that, especially smaller countries, maybe
1 month,
larger places. Yeah, even 1 month. People there are dependent on tourism. If you go up in the higher mountains, the only revenue which they can earn is through tourism. The rest is agriculture, which is only valid for 4 to 5 months in a year, because the rest of the time it is there. So one is that. The other thing, of course, this is a good idea, but that would probably be for a place which is overused, which is, completely gone away. If you go across Nepal, you'll find it's completely underused. Lisa, you'd like to say something?
Just quickly, we actually do close down, actually for 3 months a year. Our Tiger Mountain Poker Lodge is on the ridge above us here. The national park lodges, the trekking more or less stops during the summer. We close down because we have the monsoon, so everybody has a rest. And I would just absolutely echo what Upal says, is that when we stopped tourism due to COVID, or the earthquake, or we have floods, whatever. It's only then that you realise how many people in Nepal are absolutely dependent on tourism, and we had huge hardship and suffering during COVID when people who didn't even think they were involved in tourism, selling books or eggs or chickens, so everybody suffered. It was really a very, very dramatic time for us here. So, thank you.
Raise hands. Questions? Yes, sir. Yeah, please. Right here. Yeah.
Namaste, I am Krishna Gurung. Very great to be here. I am from Pokhara, a local-based tourism entrepreneur and tourism consultant. Actually, I should be asking this question to our relevant government agencies, but taking opportunity of this forum, my question is to Lisa Madam about the Upper Mustang. When Upper Mustang was opened in 1992 for foreigners, the Nepal government had introduced some protocols like 1,000 visitors per year, $700, and for 10 days, something like that. Now the area has been, the trekking trail has been replaced by the road, most of the places. Still there are some alternative trekking routes. And a few years ago, Nepal government reduced to $500 from $700. So my query is to Lisa Madam that maybe you can suggest to Nepal government, it is time to review that area, status of that area, what you want to suggest to the Nepal government, since you are living in Nepal for a long time and you are one of the expertise in high tourism. Thank you.
Thank you, Krishna. There's lots of really good ideas that the government could be helping us with, and I think you're absolutely right, the regulations, and that's why I say really the partnerships between the government and the private sector, the government who are actually quite under-resourced in Nepal, not necessarily very highly skilled. They're part of the civil service rotation in the Ministry of Tourism. We're very lucky to have the Nepal Tourism Board, which is that crossover. But for sure, it is so many of the regulations that have been introduced have actually changed the patterns here, and not necessarily to the benefit of high value tourism. We tend to get back to the lowest common denominator. So roads, which is anyone who has flown over Nepal recently will have seen an amazing proliferation of roads, some of them not sustainable at all, just local roads. This is something that we've had to address. It's not only has major environmental impact, but it actually changes the patterns of tourism, the trekking patterns. Mustang you can now drive to from here if you get in a jeep. Today you can be there, well, if you fly to Jomsung, you'd be there in one day to the capital of Lomantang. I mean, I like to see this as an opportunity. It means it's changing segments. It means it's different products and different experiences that we can offer. But we need to have really proactive product development, proactive marketing, and that needs to be guided by the authorities, the government, the provinces, the local people, what they want, and then we as the private sector fit in with that. I would just, as I've got the microphone, like to echo what Upal said, is that we've seen very little real international investment in Nepal tourism since the early days. And that's really due to the investment climate, the investment environment. And so if we want to see improved, higher value tourism and get ourselves out of this kind of negative spiral of more people paying less, I would definitely call on the government to review the investment regulations. Thank you.
Upal, Rosabella, Lisa, thank you so very much, and sorry that we had to curtail the event, and we're right on time. We have 6 seconds left, Paul, so how's that?
Great, thank you.
Fantastic job.